All right. Hello, everyone. Larry Stahl here with the Infinity Well. Topic of today is going to be what are some books that you really need to get into if you want to get into the Marvel Universe? It was actually funny. I had gotten a question about this just yesterday. Questions from a lot of people. Um, that like whoever I'm like talking to, about the Marvel universe in general. They just want to know about those things. So I figured, hey, why not just do a video on it? What do I think is all around really good for everybody to go over? And for those of you who aren't necessarily going to try to go out and seek these books out and want to go read them, um, we'll actually try to go over those books on the channel because I do feel that some of these are like very pinpoint necessary to what we're going to end up being talking about. And they're also just necessary if you're into the world of Marvel. Excuse me. Still kind of waiting for some people to file in. I was going to start at 55. It appears we have one person watching. And remember, guys, do not be afraid to post comments. I always respond, and I keep track of what comments come up and go down. Any kind of books that you guys want to know about, any particular character that you want to know about on this episode, just go ahead and comment it to me, and I'll try to figure one out for you. Yeah, just it. There's a lot of things that we can go over on this episode today. So let me post a comment. We got Toxic Punisher 96. Yo, what's up? By the way, guys, before we get into the nitty gritty of this episode, last night's gaming live stream went ridiculously well. We have some inside jokes on the channel now, and we have quite a few fans. And also for that 100th comment giveaway, Austin Nichols was the 100th comment, and I ended up getting him a digital comics code to be redeemed on the Marvel Comics app. I emailed that out today. I hope he got a hold of it, and I hope he can show up in here so that he can confirm that he got that. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Got about 1 more minute left to go. I'm gonna have to leave a comment. All right. I think it went very well last night too. It did. It went ridiculously well. We streamed for about 2.5 hours. And remember, guys, there's 5 episodes of that series. That means we got like another 4 up and coming episodes coming up of that. Actually, I'm going to angle this over a little bit. You guys usually don't see that. Okay. All right, but yeah, it is now 4:55, and we're going to get the topic going. So, all right, what are some of the books that you guys should start on? Because I remember when I was a kid, I got into it in a really weird way. When I was a kid, I think 2007, I was about 7 years old, and Spider-Man 3 was coming out. Now, I did not live in a household where I was exposed to any sorts of superheroes and things like that. The only things I really had was Batman toys that my brother had handed down from me, or handed down for me. And, I got to play with those all the time. But I didn't really know exactly what it was I was playing with. Like I knew like of Batman and of Robin, but that was really about it. And so when Spider-Man 3 was coming out, all the kids were just freaking out. Oh my God, Spider-Man's so cool. We can't wait for Spider-Man 3. There, are you going to see Spider-Man 3? And I was like, what's Spider-Man? And everyone was like, what the hell? Like, what? Why do you not know? And just so many different things. But essentially, what ended up happening was there was a kid who came in. His name was Thomas. I will not disclose what his last name was. Like I haven't seen him in years, but I just want to be sure. What ended up happening was he had brought in some like Spider-Man books and toys, and like like those big DK encyclopedias. Like, do you guys remember those? Like, did your school have them where it was like Spider-Man the Ultimate Guide and it had him like jumping on the cover, and like it was just like really in depth, but there was like the book itself, like the dimensions of the book, like height and width were just crazy, and it was hard to carry around. But yeah, Toxic Punisher 96 says, I remember all that. It was my favorite book. It was my favorite book, too. Now, that was kind of my introduction to Spider-Man. Not the comics, Spider-Man. Was Spider-Man 3 in that encyclopedia. But the first comic book I ever read was Ultimate Spider-Man number 112, which a name that you guys hear a lot on this channel because he's one of my favorite writers is Brian Michael Bendis. It was written by him and drawn by Stuart Immonen. And that was my first ever comic book. And now, mind you, it wasn't like in the middle of the story or anything, but it was at the beginning of a story that you really needed pretext for. Because it was pretty much like the story was called The Death of the Goblin, and it was pretty much like the Green Goblin trying to kill Peter Parker and like teaming up with Electro and stuff. And it was really good. But the thing was, I was reading it and I loved what I was reading. I had like a whole story in front of me, and I was getting these books monthly from the pharmacy. But when it comes down to it, like I had to go back and research. Like, I had to go back and do a lot of research, and then I had figured out there was 111 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man that had happened before that. But it's almost like that pharmacy was keeping that book there for me, because that book, I was reading it every month, and it was my favorite thing ever, and it's honestly probably why Spider-Man is like my favorite character of all time. So, that was my introduction into it, and I really had to dig and do like deep dives and stuff. Like, if I tried to get into it now, being 19 years old, like if for some reason I wasn't in the comic books and I wanted to jump into it now, I wouldn't know where the hell to start. It's kind of like that with like Star Wars. I have a lot of friends of mine who are like, you seem like the kind of person who really like Star Wars. Why don't you like Star Wars? And the honest to God truth is, I like the movies. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate Star Wars. Okay, it's just like, how do I put it? It's almost like there's such a grander universe that's outside of those movies, and if you were to like try to hunt down any particular book, there's no place to start. Because like that's just something where you just kind of have to hope somebody writes a novel detailing all of it, and you'll have to figure all that out. Toxic Punisher 96 leaves a comment and says, Spider-Man's always been a serious favorite of mine. It was actually my first Marvel hero that I grew up with, and he will always be my favorite. That is exactly how it is for me. On all my, like, I have a top 5 list of favorite Marvel characters. Like, this is the thing. And Spider-Man is always number 1. And the other 4 are constantly moving, depending on what I'm reading with that character. But anyways, I digress, though, because, it kind of got into why I was into it and other things like that. But how are you guys going to get into it? If you guys are trying to find any particular books you want to read, okay. First of all, I highly recommend, and like this is sort of like my top 5 list, and there will be like an extra one at the end, because usually that's how I like to do it. I like to do it as top 5s. What I highly recommend is Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1, Power and Responsibility. And as a matter of fact, I will go and try to find a link for this book on Amazon, because this one is a very important one, especially if a lot of you are fans of Spider-Man. I don't think there's a single person out there who could absolutely hate the character and doesn't at least have a little interest in the character of Spider-Man, and this is your best start. This is the first 6 issues of the series. Essentially, it's just Peter Parker. You know, you see him get bit by the spider. You see him live through Uncle Ben's death and learning with great power comes great responsibility. But it's like a modern take on it. You know, it's not like the 1960s version, and it's actually relatable. The way that Peter feels in the book, it's just very relatable. But there's that link right there. That is for the first volume of Ultimate Spider-Man on Amazon. It appears that you can get it for, I think it says like $11. Like, yeah, dude, I'd be jumping on that. There's also all sorts of used copies for even less. But that is one that I highly recommend, especially because it's like the Marvel Universe exists around him. You don't really get a sense of it in like the first 7 issues of the book, but as the series goes on, you get this firm belief that there's a Marvel Universe existing around this young kid. He's not perfect. He's a kid who cusses a lot and wigs out because he doesn't know how to handle situations. But as the series goes on, and you read it, because it ran for 160 issues, which was about 30 graphic novels, you really get a sense for. You get to see Peter grow up, and it's almost like you grow up with him. At least that's how it felt for me when I was a kid. I made it my life's goal to collect that entire series, and I now officially have all of it. But that wasn't up until November of last year that I finally had collected all of it. So yes, do not be afraid to check that book out. It's got amazing artwork from Mark Bagley. He is my personal favorite Spider-Man artist. Toxic Punisher 96 says I'll definitely be checking that out. I appreciate the link. It is no problem. I am not afraid to ever drop links at all to help you guys out, because a lot of the time, like, it's one thing for me to sit here and be like, oh yeah, these things are great, these things are great, these things are great, go find them. The go find them is where it gets hard. You know, like you kind of have to push people in the right direction if they want to get into it, because there's so many different places that you can try to find these books. That, and I can understand not wanting to pay the full cover price. I think the full actual cover price of the Ultimate Spider-Man Ultimate Collections is like, I want to say, usually they're about $40, because it's 12 issues of a series, which means 2 graphic novels shoved together to make an Ultimate Collection book. They're like $40. So that price point is actually a really good one, and I believe that'd be a good one for people to try to get into. And speaking of last night, how we were talking about earlier, Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy, one of my favorite things right now. Like, they're probably my favorite team at Marvel. I can say that. I mean, I love the Avengers, don't get me wrong. But like the Avengers and the Guardians, it goes up and down for me. And like, I'm very excited for Endgame. I'm very excited. And as a matter of fact, when I get off of here, I'm going to get to work on some Endgame related content for you guys. But that being said, what's a good Guardians book? Now, with the Guardians, you really kind of have to go back to the back catalog, because the Guardians of the Galaxy, you really have to, excuse me, you really kind of have to dig for what's a good place to start with them. With the Guardians primarily, what you need to do, what you need to do is go back to 2008. Okay, so there's this really cool story called Annihilation, which this is the run of the Guardians that the movies are like inspired by, because like the movies kind of do their own thing from how the Guardians really are in the books, or at least how they were before the movie came out. And then they started making the books like the movie because the movie was so successful. But there's a lot of things with the Guardians that you guys might not be aware of. Originally, I don't even want to say it was like it didn't feel like Star Wars even. It felt like it was almost like if it's almost, it gives you the feeling of like space is like a post-apocalyptic wasteland and the Guardians are the only ones that can fix it. Even though they're all kind of losers and they're not fully functional and able to work with each other, they truly can be a force to be reckoned with. Which is why I personally think that you guys should check out Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's Guardians of the Galaxy Ultimate Collection, which I'm trying to find a link to the book here for you guys. It's a very, very good book. I'm trying to find a way to get it up here for you guys. Not appearing to be able to find it, and I hope it's not out of print. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, now this one is $30, but it is issues 1 through 12 of a very, very, very good series. There's much more pathos to all of the characters. There's Peter Quill is a completely different monster from what he is now. Like back then, he was like part cyborg. He was a lot more serious of a character. So that would be something really cool for you guys to check out, because like you get to see where the Guardians start, like in their roots. Like where is that going to go? I absolutely love that run. Like I think that'd be a really good one for all parties involved. Especially because I feel like the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is probably going to take the most from this run. Like, whenever the third Guardians movie comes out, it's going to be probably about the stuff that happens there. Now, with a third book. A third book is very important when you're trying to make a top 5, because this is kind of like the middle ground. Like, what's like a third book that you could like really pitch to people? Now, I've had to think about this for quite some time, and I can honestly say it is going to be Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon. Now, Astonishing X-Men is like a really solid series. I'll try to find you guys the Ultimate Collection. There it is. Okay, yes, it is still up on the website. We actually have a comment here real quick from Toxic Puncher 96. He says, I'm really curious of how that's going to turn out. Definitely going to have to check that out too. Yes, it's really good. The Guardians, they work much more like a unit though. They argue, but they don't argue as much as they do in the movies. Like, they understand that they're supposed to be like a protective force. But this next one is Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon and John Cassaday. Probably my favorite X-Men run ever. And essentially, it's just, you get to see like the X-Men reform, and it's all through the eyes of Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, for those of you that don't know, she is the X-Men character that has the ability to like walk through walls. She's able to phase through things. She can turn off technology by phasing through it and cutting off circuitry. It's really cool. And the entire Ultimate Collection book right there, I believe this one is the first 12 issues as well. If I can find it. Yep. Astonishing X-Men 1 through 12. And it's essentially like you get to see the X-Men, like instead of fighting other mutants, you get to see them like fight aliens and AI. And, you know, it's like AI gone bad. Like essentially the X-Men fight like a early prototype Terminator. Like it's not the Terminator, but it's just like an AI that goes rogue and decides it's tired of being a slave. And it's really good. It's really good. For those of you who don't know who the writer is, Joss Whedon is the guy who directed the first two Avengers movies. He did a really fantastic job with those movies, and if that tells you about his team building dynamic and how exactly he runs the characters along, it works out very well. They feel much more like a family. Like that Guardians run I just pitched, in the movies they're like a family, but they're more of a team in that book. In this, the X-Men are a family. And mutants really do watch out for each other, and there's a very it gets very sweet. You also get to see what the X-Men are like when Xavier is not around, because Xavier is not the leader of the team on that book. So that's really interesting to kind of see that dynamic. I remember when I first bought the book, I picked it up and I was like, what the fuck, where's Xavier? Well, it turns out the book doesn't need Xavier. The X-Men being led by the White Queen, Emma Frost, and Cyclops, it's really great. I absolutely love it. The book can get creepy. The book can get very depressing. But really, it's just it's all kind of like an allegory for like accepting who you are. You know, you have the whole thing where like they create a cure for mutants and stuff like that. Like the story is just absolutely phenomenal. You guys should go and check that out. Excuse me. But anyways, jumping back into what a number 4 book would be. We've covered the Spider-Man, the Guardians, the X-Men. Where are we going with the Avengers? Now, I'm going to have to find this book on here so that way I can link it to you guys. All right. Right here. This one is a ridiculously good book. This is another one written by Brian Michael Bendis, but it's an absolutely fun, time-twisting story. This is going to be The Avengers. It doesn't really have a subtitle, but it's The Avengers Volume 1 as written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by John Romita Jr. If I can try to find a better way to get that link over to you guys. Because the link is pretty much like too long. And I'm having a really hard time. No, as a matter of fact, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to copy and paste the title of the book in here. And hopefully you guys will be able to look it up. Sorry, that's the Avengers. The A got cut off. Okay, so Toxic Punisher 96 has commented. He says, nice, actually look forward to checking out these links to all start these books. It's definitely going to be a great start for me. All of these books, I believe, are like, especially with modern Marvel, like from like 2000 forward, like these are all like definitely like checkout books. It's absolutely great. But that book right there, Avengers Volume 1 by Brian Michael Bendis from 2010, it's just it's a really awesome book. You get to see one of my favorite Avengers teams that I've ever seen. You've got the Winter Soldier is Captain America, and Captain America is the head of like the actual like Steve Rogers is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so he has Winter Soldier being Captain America for him. And then the rest of the team is Spider-Woman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Thor, Iron Man, Novar, who is a character that you guys won't quite know, but if you guys ever want me to cover who that is, he's like a Captain Marvel type character. He's a Kree kid. You have a Hawkeye, Miss Marvel. There's a lot of really cool characters in that book, and it's essentially about time travel going amok. One of my favorite Avengers villains of all time, Kang the Conqueror, who a lot of people theorize is going to be in Avengers Endgame, is in that book, and it's essentially him messing with the time stream, and it becomes unstable. And at the end of the book, it ends up becoming Kang versus Ultron. So, Kang versus Ultron, it's really cool. It's all really cool. All of the Marvel characters that are listed in there, it becomes really awesome. They fight all sorts of villains. They fight Apocalypse and his four horsemen. Um, they fight dinosaurs, World War One planes. Like it gets really cool and crazy. So like, do not be afraid to check out that book. That is like my number 4, like all across the board. If you want to start reading Marvel with like all of like the cool characters in the movies, that is a good place to go. Now, the last book that I have for you guys, which I know is going to be a treat for you all because I know everybody likes it. Okay, this book is going to be something. I don't even want to tell you guys what it is just yet because this is a really big deal. So there is a character who has killed everybody in the Marvel Universe before. It was in an alternate reality. Don't get me wrong, but it's a character who has killed every single person in the Marvel Universe single-handedly. And for those of you who don't know who that character is, that is Wade Wilson himself, Deadpool. Deadpool is a really big deal to a lot of people. And this book, I think, firmly cements him as a force to be reckoned with. This right here is a link to the book known as Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which is a crazy, like, alternate reality story where Deadpool gets hit so hard he realizes that he is in a comic book. And he just realizes nothing matters. And he starts killing everyone. Like, he kills everybody all by himself. Doesn't get any help. He does have to find certain weapons and artifacts throughout the Marvel Universe to be able to kill everybody. But he does it. And it's the craziest thing ever. Toxic Punisher off to the side says nice. It is super nice. Because this book goes to a really weird place. It's really good. I think you guys would absolutely love reading that one. It's probably one of like my favorite Deadpool stories that I have ever read. So yeah, that one is a pretty awesome one. So do not be afraid to check it out. But anyways, that is going to be my top 5. And if I were to choose a number 6 that everybody should check out, where it features just about every character, or at least it features a lot of characters that are important but shows new perspective on it. And I think I have shared this book with you guys before. On a previous top 5 list, but I do believe that this is a really cool, important one if you're looking to some of the unsung heroes of the Marvel Universe. This is the Young Avengers, the Complete Collection, as written by Allan Heinberg and Jim Chung. That book pretty much tells the tale about some kids who want to be the Avengers someday. And so they get up from whatever it is that they're doing and they decide to be heroes. And by the beginning of the book, they're just stopping people from shooting up like balls and gala events. And by the end, they are stopping a entire Kree alien race and Skrull alien race war. It's super cool. I would definitely check it out. The art in that book is absolutely baller. Like, it is ridiculously good. And I can honestly say that it is one of my favorite Marvel stories, hands down. It's only a 13-issue book, but it covers so much ground. It also features special characters such as Jessica Jones from the Netflix series. It prominently features Captain America and Iron Man and some of the other Avengers. It's absolutely wonderful, and I highly recommend it. If there's any other comments anybody would like to leave about any other certain characters, that would be totally okay. Like, don't be afraid to comment and leave those. But as of right now, I'm going to have to get started on a really big project that is going to be. I'm going to start posting it tomorrow, and it's going to be going on from there. It's a really big project for the channel, and it's going to be leading up to some things. So anyways, that will be all from me today. Thank you, all of you, for watching. I am Larry Stahl, and thank you for listening to The Infinity Well, and we will be right back at it tomorrow with another video. Actually, 2 videos, hopefully. So thank you very much, and face front, true believers. This is the end of the video.